So, the lateral malleolus. So obviously we want to expose the lateral malleolus. Nothing against you.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
It's just,
About to take myself
it isn't you, it's me.
off. Yeah,
It really is. I'm not just saying that. That's not my thumb. That was my pointer finger. So what position do you think we want our patient in?
Well, based on that,
River. Oh, Fletch. So, what, we know that we got to have that lateral malleolus exposed, right? But then we also have to have a distal portion of that ankle exposed, which means that we need to take off her sock.
Were you looking at that face? I washed my toes.
She just did for me, right? And then our proximal portion, or proximal arm, needs to line up with essentially the fibula, okay? So, fulcrum is going to be right on now. For those of you that can see me, if I'm sitting and I'm at the lowest position this thing will go, and her foot's hanging down there, and I lean over, what have I just done to myself?
Bad posture.
Say it again. Say it
oh, giving yourself scoliosis.
Well, but along those lines, ish. Okay, I thought you were going to say bad body mechanics. Yes, I'm putting myself into a position of bad body mechanics. Okay, and we want to avoid that. Okay, but we also don't want to do this because the motion that we're going to be going into, it'll stretch out that gastroc. The gastroc covers or crosses the knee. And if we put her into this position, then we're going to be stretching that gastroc over that knee. So, I'm going to get on the floor. She hates the floor and feet. That's worse than me. Okay, so I get the fulcrum.
Under their knee to make it flatter. Oh my goodness.
No. So, I'm going to get my fulcrum lined up with the lateral malleolus, which is attached to the fibula, correct? So, I'm going to take my proximal arm just up the line of the fibula. I can find her fibular head as my anatomical point. So there's my my proximal arm. My distal arm is going to be in line with her fifth metatarsal. Okay? I'm not going to line up with a point on it because fifth metatarsal runs right here. And if I say I find a nice bony prominence, which is the head of that fifth met, and I line up with it, look at my distal arm. It's practically pointed straight down. Okay? We don't want that. We want to be in line with or parallel with the fifth met. You can essentially line up with the plantar surface, they keep still, plantar surface of their foot. Okay? Now the fifth met does angle down a little bit, but it's not a huge amount, so we can, for the most part, unless there's an extreme amount of swelling or if there's something else going on, then we want to really make sure that we palpate, which we want to do anyway. But if we were to palpate, then I can go right along that fifth met, and I can see that it's pretty much right in line and parallel to the plantar surface of her foot. And so I can just line up that distal arm with the bottom of her foot. Okay? And then let's say I want to do passive, and I come right up under her foot and I start moving it up. Two things happen. Okay? First, if I just let her foot move the goni, then it's still going to have a slight angle at it, and so I'll end up with a little bit less of an angle than what I'm actually getting. So I still read at a little less range of motion. Okay. Unless they can completely lay right there on top of it and stay in line, you're typically not able to do that. But if I apply that pressure to take her into dorsiflexion on the plantar surface, right under where that the goni arm is, what's happening? What have I done to that fifth mat? I've moved it. Okay? So I've actually changed the angle at which her plantar surface is sitting from when it started, or when I first lined up. So whenever you do dorsiflexion, make sure you're not applying pressure on that fifth mat, on that lateral side. We want to be midfoot, if not slightly medial, when we apply that pressure. Just make sure you're staying off that fifth mat, because if you do that, then it'll change your angle, okay? So I apply pressure more centrally or medial on that foot. And again, as I do that, I gotta, with my thumb, I gotta make sure that I stay in line with her fifth metatarsal. And I'm getting right there. Okay, go and relax. And she's got 4 degrees of dorsiflexion. Woo!
That's not right.
Totally is right.
It is.
It's only 4 degrees.
Because even though in resting position, bloop, what motion is she starting in? Plantar flexion, and we want to start at 0. Or that's where we start counting the numbers as we go, okay? So even though I'm down here, I'm not going to count the numbers that I see until right, oh, relax. Right there is 0. And if I keep going, ooh, we're getting a little bit more this time. 6 degrees!
Woo!
2 more degrees. Woo-woo. Okay, but here's the funny thing with plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. Just like they found with internal external rotation of the hip, where maybe they were way under on one of them, but they were way over on the other, this is a great example of where that can happen. Okay? Dorsiflexion is horrible. It is.
It is.
It really is.
I know.
But that's because dancers don't dorsiflex very often.
Well, we do when we play it.
Well, okay. But they plantar flex a lot more, right? They plantar flex a lot more. So, even though her dorsiflexion is way under, as I go and take her into plantar flexions, the points are all still going to be lined up at the same points. As I go into plantar flexion, I'm not going to be very surprised if I am way over on that plantar flexion. And I'm getting 72 degrees of plantar flexion. Which is, knowing the patient, not surprising, right? But it's also not surprising because she was lacking so much dorsiflexion that I would almost anticipate that I'd probably be able to see a little bit over what's considered norm with, switch that. She was lacking dorsiflexion, so it wouldn't be uncommon to see a lot over our normal range for plantar flexion.
Would that be vice versa?